Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi गौरभक्तवृन्दा Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Hare Hare. Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन श्री चैतन्य नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गीता हरि गुरु वैष्णव भागवत गीता श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास रघुनाथ हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल जय ओम विष्णुपद परमहंस प्रजिगाचार्य अष्टोत्तरशत श्री श्रीमद शिल भाई चंद्रानंद भक्ति वेदांत साईं महाराज शिल भूपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नाम आचार्य शिल ठाकुर हरिदास की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय गंगा देवी की जय यमुना मयी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय इस्कॉन बीबीथी संस्थापक आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय गौ प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Jai Shri Prabhupada Hare Krishna. I usually don't like to sit in these big chairs, but people need to see. We are discussing Srimad Bhagavatam tonight. This is from Canto 3, and I was asked to speak about chapter 29, which is Kapila Dev's explanation of devotional service to his mother Devahuti. Kapila Dev is, of course, one of the incarnations of the Lord. He took birth as the son of whom? Kardama Muni and? Yes. So, we'll begin. Well, I should first of all recap some of the highlights that this chapter has already covered. Back in text number 7, the Lord really began his instructions about Bhakti Yoga as he was requested by his mother. And in text number 8, he said, devotional service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent, and angry, and who is a separatist, is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. Usually those qualities don't come if we are pure in heart, if our intentions are pure. Ahaituki bhakti is the ideal. What does ahaituki mean? Ahaituki. Without any motive, with no agenda, as we say in English. So this is the idea. So yeah, we have to watch out for these tendencies. We can be envious, we can be proud, we can be violent, or we can be angry, or we can be a separatist. What does that mean, separatist? Sounds like sedition or something, right? Well, it is actually. We, instead of actually surrendering wholeheartedly into the Lord's designs, we have our own agendas. We have our own design. We have a separate interest from that of the Lord. Everybody here has a separate interest, you have to admit, if you're honest. All right. And then, coming ahead a little bit more, worship of the deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. We're talking about devotional service. These are devotees. But they can be in the mode of ignorance devotees. They can be in the mode of passion devotees. So this is describing passion. He's a separatist. He has his own agenda. And his motive is either material enjoyment or maybe fame or opulence. In other words, profit, adoration, distinction. This is what we seek when we're in the mode of passion, performing devotional service. And then finally, when a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrieties of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. That is to say, if you are trying to worship the Lord for the purpose of getting freed from all these tendencies that we have, the passion, the ignorance, even sattva gunas ultimately has to be given up, then that's at least in sattva guna, and that's progressive. And the other gunas of bhakti, you can't really advance, at least not very much. So he says, the symptom of unadulterated devotion is when you are at once attracted by hearing the name or qualities of the Lord, who's residing in everyone's heart, just as the Ganga flows to the ocean. Nobody has to train the Ganga to flow to the ocean. It's automatic. In other words, your attraction for the Lord and His holy names and topics about Him, it should be spontaneous. If our devotion is not spontaneous yet, then we should understand there's some admixture of these modes of passion or ignorance. And then finally he says, if a devotee does not accept even liberation when they may be offered by the Lord, if it is not favorable for his service, he will reject even liberation. 5 kinds, what are they? Who knows? The 5 kinds of liberation. Sayuja, Sarupya, Samipya, Salokya. No, Ekatvam and Sayuja, same thing. Sarishti, yeah. So you can have opulence just like God. Sound pretty good? That's what most people want, isn't it? Okay, how about if you can have that without love? You can have all the opulence in the world, but nobody can love you. And you're not going to love anybody else. You going to go for that? Yeah, we know better than that. And yet still people are trying like that. So a devotee who's only interested in pure love, he's not interested in even the Lord offers him. Who's an example? The Lord offered such a facility. Dhruva. Swamim kritartos mivanam nayache. Even the Lord's offering him everything. You can have a form like the Lord. You can live in the proximity of the Lord like the pujari in the temple, no? He's always with the Lord all day long. That's Simipya Mukti. And Salokya Mukti, he's going back to Vaikuntha. Or if you're worshipping Ram, raise your hand if you like Rama more. Okay. We've got a few of them. Be yourself. So, that's Salokya Mukti. You can live on the Lord's planet. Or if you're worshipping Narasimhadev, he has his own Vaikuntha planet, you can go there. Mostly, though, we want to go back to Goloka Vrindavan. We don't even call it Krishna Loka that much. Mostly we call it Goloka, right? Why? Goloka ka matlab kya hai? Cow world. Huh? Goloka. Cow world. Krishna doesn't even name his planet after himself. He names it after his bovine devotees. Okay, so these are the 5 kinds of liberation Kapila Dev has explained already. Devotees are not even interested in that. So, despite this, he carries on with his prescribed duties, just to keep, what does he say in Bhagavad Gita? Loka sangrahameva api. Only for the purpose of social solidarity, we can say. All right, so we're supposed to start from text 21. I'm just going to recite Mangalacharana, and then I'll recite the Sanskrit quickly, and we could discuss a few verses. I don't know how far we'll get. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishne Swadhamo Pagate Dhanamajnanadibhisaha Valaunashtra Drishamesha Puranarko Dhunodita Aham Sarveshu Bhuteshu Bhutam. Let's see if you can do it. Bhutatma Vasthitaha Sada Tam Avajnaya Mam Martyaha Kuruter Chavidambanam. I'm impressed. This is an Indian audience, they can do it. One who worships the deity of Godhead in the temples but does not know that the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is situated in every living entity's heart must be in ignorance, and is compared to one who offers oblations into ashes. Idam Krishnaya, idam namama, right? Or we offering ghee into the fire, right? Do we offer ghee into the ashes instead of fire? What is the point? The Lord accepts sacrifice through the agency of Agni. Let's see what Prabhupada's purport says. It is clearly stated herein that the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his plenary expansion as the Supersoul is present in all living entities, even those people who hate you, even those people that you don't like, even those people that you're trying to exploit, even those people who are trying to exploit you, even your father, even your children, even your friends, even in strangers on the street. Karna karna mein hai Bhagavan, they say, right? So he's there. Andantarastha paramanu chayantarastham. Even in the atom he's there. Paramatma is everywhere, pervading this creation in his Paramatma feature. Localized Paramatma. So, a person who is worshipping the deity very faithfully must always remember this. Otherwise, we tend to become envious of others. When we walk into a room, we immediately start scanning the situation and calculating, okay, what's the threat here for me? Or what's the benefit for me, right? Profit loss calculation. Because we have an envious attitude. Not much more polished than animals, if you think about it. Prabhupada said the animals are wandering around on 4 legs looking for 4 things. They want to eat, they want to mate, they want to defend, they want to go to sleep. If we're doing these things on 4 wheels, are we any better, really? The consciousness is similar. What does it take to take birth as a quadruped? Or as a living entity that has no legs? Who has no legs? Snakes. Yeah. Or a spineless living entity, right? Who's spineless? Any biologists here? Yeah, well, no, fish also have spines, but germs, paramecia. Anybody here know what a neural net is? It's basically not even a one-celled organism. It's just very, very, very primitive consciousness. What does it take to take such births? That's what we have to consider while we can. Because animals are not here to understand these things. Even if they do come, they're only looking for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They're locked into that paradigm. You're not locked in like that. You can go higher than that if you choose. So what do you want? Why are you here? What's life for? What's real success? These are the things we're to consider. So, then he goes on to say, the living entities have 8,400,000 different kinds of bodies, and the Supreme Personality of God is living in every body, both as the individual soul and as the super soul. Since the individual soul is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, in that sense, the Lord is living in every body. And as super soul, the Lord is also present as a witness. In both cases, the presence of God in every living entity is essential. What does Krishna say about the function of Paramatma in Bhagavad Gita? 2 things. One of them Prabhupada has already mentioned. Anybody know the Sanskrit? You get extra credit if you know the Sanskrit. My godbrother Nirantari, you know him? He has a little bell that he rings. If you really score with a good answer, he goes, ding! I don't have that, but... Yes. Upadrashtanumantacha. These 2 things. Upadrashta. He's just witnessing everything, taking stock of everything. You can't escape. Everything is being noted down. And what else? Anumantacha. He's not going to stop you. Have you noticed? Any rascal thing that you do, you'll not be stopped by God. He will let you do it. Upadrashta cha anumanta cha. So these are his 2 functions. He does not interfere with your minute independence. We were talking with Venkata last night. And, the question is that how can God let all this stuff go on if he's all powerful and all merciful and all cognizant at the same time? So many rascal things are doing. The answer is that we have minute independence, and that is essential to us. It is inextricable. It is, I want to say, what's the fancy Latin word? Ontological. It is part of our swarup. Inalienable, that's a better word. You have free will, and the Lord will not take that away from you. Even if you're hurting his other creatures. And he sees that. We've already described that he's the witness. So what goes? Is he still merciful despite that? How is it possible? Who has an answer? Nobody? Okay. How many have read Bhagavad Gita here? Raise your hand. They're going like this. Anyway, you have to read Prabhupada's books and you will get the answers to all such questions. So, we are created with this innate but minute independence. That means we can abuse our independence if we choose, because choice is there. What do you call it if the person you love has no choice in the matter? What do you call that? There is a word for it. It's called robotics. Yeah? You just program, the person really doesn't, sometimes, people do this. The crazy people, they're so dysfunctional, they can't maintain a normal relationship with anyone, so they go and kidnap somebody, they chain them to the wall, and then they pretend that this person loves me. This is insanity. We cannot expect that the Lord is going to be like that. He's given us our free will, because there's no meaning to love if you don't have a choice. Love means that you don't have to love someone, but you can love anyone that you choose to love. So this is what makes love a valuable thing. In the kingdom of love, Bharata Muni says, he's a premier aesthetician in South Asian civilization. He says, in the kingdom of love, both parties are equally significant. Even if one of them happens to be God and the other one is not God. But it's 50-50 nonetheless. Because that's the nature of love. If you only have 10% choice in the matter, it's not so far from robotics, right? You have to have equal say. Then it's valuable. Then even the Lord values it. And we all have that potency. That's what makes us valuable. That's why we exist. That's how we experience real happiness if we so choose. But usually, because we're overwhelmed by the external energy Mahamaya in the form of these three modes, passion, ignorance, sometimes sattva, then we get confused in so many ways. And we think that robotics is a better idea than love. That's what everybody's doing in the material world. So-called love. So, Prabhupada is writing about this. Since the individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, in that sense the Lord is living in every body, and as the Supersoul, the Lord is also present as a witness. In both cases, the presence of God in every living entity is essential. Therefore, persons who profess to belong to some religious sect, but who do not feel the presence of the Supreme Personality of God in every living entity and everywhere else, are in the mode of ignorance. That's a pretty strong statement. Favorite example, religious faith, or even a kind of love, you can say, but it's in the mode of ignorance. People are very, very pious in their own way. They're even prepared to sacrifice their lives for God. But because they're in the mode of ignorance, they think that the proper way to do this is to kill as many other, non-believers as they can by, say, for example, flying a jetliner into a skyscraper building. You cannot deny that it's faith, and it's God-centered, no doubt, but it's tamasic. And it just doesn't work. Neither did it work for them, neither did it work for any of those that they killed. It's in the mode of ignorance. Do not remain in the mode of ignorance. Tamasi ma jyotirgama. And yes. Yes, the light should be there. Prakash hona chahiye. That is the primary symptom of sattva guna. Every gate of your body is illumined by awareness. How do you say awareness in Sanskrit? Awareness. Yeah, we can say that. Actually, the word is jnana. Jnana. Janati. So, increased awareness. This is the situation of someone in sattva guna. Tamal Krishna Goswami used to say, before you can become Krishna conscious, first you have to become conscious. Because half of the time, We're just on autopilot because you can do that in this world. You can just let go of the wheel. You can even go to sleep. And many people are asleep at the wheel in this world. And, things will go on somehow. But you will be conducted by the three modes of material nature if you do that. And those modes are not looking out for your welfare. That you have to take charge. You have to use your awareness as a human being and elevate yourself through that awareness. Otherwise, that awareness, why do you need it? You don't need it, really. If you're just going to blow it off anyways, if you're just going to diss the whole thing like the animals do, then you can take birth as an animal and you'll be happy. But that's not a very successful human form of life. So he continues here. If without this preliminary knowledge of the Lord's omnipresence, one simply attaches himself to the rituals in a temple, church, or mosque, it is as if he were offering butter into ashes rather than into the fire. How much meaning can you pack into one sentence? Only Prabhupada can answer that question. Let's read it again very slowly. If without this preliminary knowledge, one little adjective makes a lot of difference, doesn't it? This is preliminary understanding. Basic Adhyatma Gyan 101. We're not talking about greatly advanced anything. Prabhupada calls it preliminary knowledge. To understand that we are not this material body, to understand how it is that we become encased within this body. I was listening to someone give class this morning. He put it very nicely for all of you who are IT professionals. How many here are IT professionals, just out of curiosity? Raise your hands high. Okay. And how many people are here from either Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, just out of curiosity? Yeah, IT stands for International Telugu. Or, if you're another one that I've heard is that I stands for Indriya Tripti. You can take your pick. But this is preliminary knowledge. I'm not Andhra forever. I'm not even a human being forever. I'm certainly not a man or a woman. I'm not old forever. I'm not young forever. Have you noticed? Anybody noticing some gray hairs coming? Yeah, and sometimes they dye their hair, isn't it? Even I've seen devotees do this. So, awareness is the domain of the human being. Animals do not require awareness. They're not awarded awareness if they've misused it as human beings. You get a body that corresponds to what you really want, regardless of what you ask for. Even you're in the temple, you're doing some ritual, but if your consciousness is remaining like that of an animal, deliberately, because it is deliberate, always, then what do you expect you're going to get? What kind of result? So if without this preliminary knowledge of the Lord's omnipresence, that the Lord is everywhere, even in the hearts of those persons that I hate, or that I feel have wronged me, or that I would like to, those persons whose position I would like to take, people that I'm envious of. We can't, it's hypocrisy to worship the Lord on one hand. What is it, Kabir Das, he said, a person is holding Bhagavad Gita in one hand and he's holding a dagger behind his back in the other hand. So this is bogus. It's a conflict of interest, we call this. So then, a person who is like that, making a show only, this is called in Bhagavatam, there are 5 kinds of adharma that Bhagavatam discusses, and 2 of them are apropos here. One such title is Dharma Abhasa. It looks like dharma, but it's not really dharma. It's just a shadow form. And the other one is, Upama Dharma, which is kind of the same thing. But anyway, so one offers sacrifices by pouring clarified butter into a fire and chanting Vedic mantras, but even if there are Vedic mantras and all conditions are favorable, if the clarified butter is poured on ashes, then such a sacrifice will be useless. Don't waste your time as human beings. Jabalagatana mein tapana vyape tabalaga kari hari seva. एक मध्य योगीन कवि ने कहा ऐसा, उसका नाम माधव दास जगन्नाथी, और कहा जाता है कि वो गौड़ीय वैष्णव थे. मुझे पता नहीं ये सच है या नहीं, but this is what they say. Anyway, so he said, Jaba lagatana mein tapa na vyape taba laga kari hari seva. Tap क्या है? Tap का मतलब क्या है? क्या? Temperature, yeah. Tapman on the airplane, right? What else? Tap. It means a lot of things. Actually, in Sanskrit, the easiest words that everybody knows, they're actually the hardest words. Tapa can mean pain. It can mean the burning of the sun. It can mean burning of fire, any kind of burning. It means what else? How many other things burn us? Think figuratively. Yeah, passion. Passion burns, doesn't it? Why else does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita that the result of the mode of passion is dukkham? And Prabhupada writes in other purports in the Srimad Bhagavatam, people have passionate love affairs, illicit, right? And they sometimes end up in what kind of dukkha? Ghastly murder scenes. Wasn't there one in India just recently, right? Somebody killed her husband or something. So, this is passion. Tapa, the person is just pained by this or burnt by this. What else? Envy. Yeah, I mean anything that burns. He's burning with envy. We say this, right? So, jabalagatana me tapa na vyape. Tapa means pain also. If your body is in good working order, you have a sound mind and good physical strength, you're not racked with pain, so to speak, as long as that lasts, use it. Because you will lose it. Tabalaga kari hari seva. Very nicely he put it. So, this is what we can do in this short window of opportunity that we call human body. Anybody who's older than 50 now, things are starting to slow down. It's not quite this, when we're young and when we're growing especially, it's infinite strength, infinite ambition, infinite possibilities, and then hote sab kuch, pranasht ho jata hai. The process of Maya wears everybody down eventually. There's no escape. And it's, what do we call this? Pa-varga. Pa-varga. Yeah, there's Sanskrit and Hindi also. We have ka-varga, cha-varga, ta-varga, ta-varga, pa-varga. So pa-pa-pa-ba-bha-ma. What does it stand for? Pa ka matlab hai parishram. You have to work hard. Sharira yatrapi chate na prasiddhera karmanaha. Or anybody ever studied Hitopadesh here? Hitopadesh, does it ring any bells? In the previous generation, everybody would get this in school in India. Everybody knew Hitopadesh. It's a very valuable book, full of all kinds of practical instructions. So there it says, Nahi suptasya singhasya praveshante mukhe mrigaha. Just because he's the king of the forest, a lion cannot lie down and just open his mouth and expect the deer are going to walk in. It doesn't work like that. He has to work also. And so do we. Only one person does not have to work. And who is that? Krishna. He's completely irresponsible. But not because I shouldn't say irresponsible, but he has nothing to do himself. Natasya karyam karanam shavidyate. What do we call karyam in Hindi? Kaj. Yeah, kam kaj karna padega. So, Krishna has no such responsibility in that way. His only purpose is to oversee things, and even that he's taken care of through his Paramatma expansion, which we've already described. He himself has absolutely nothing to do. And so how does he occupy his time? What does God do all day long? If he's deputed everything to other people, what does he do? Who knows? Think about this. Anybody who's really a sincere devotee should have given this some thought already. How does God preoccupy himself if he's got nothing that he needs to do?
As per Gita, they mention that he still follows the call.
Okay, he sets an example. वो ठीक रहेगा. But what does he do for his own amusement? He's completely absorbed in his devotees. Now, if you have a friend who is omniscient and omnipotent and omnimerciful, wouldn't it be a good idea to have him looking out for you? The problem is that we have to undergo a process of attitude adjustment. Because we are, in a sense, I mean, I hate to say it so bluntly, we have a criminal mentality in which we're either trying to evade God's authority, or, more concretely, his representatives, or we're trying to exploit the Lord's assets, his energies. Or, even sometimes when we're sahajiyas, then we're trying to exploit the Lord directly. What's a first-class example of this mentality? Hunchback. Any ringing any bells? No? Anybody read Bhagavatam? Huh? Trivakra. Uska naam Trivakra tha. Better known as Kubja. Kubja was a hunchback. She was in charge of oils, collecting oils and unguents for the king Kamsa. But when she saw Krishna and Balaram, her jaw just dropped open. She couldn't believe anybody could be so wonderful. And Krishna came and said, Hare Krishna, how are you? What you got? And she said, I'm carrying oils and unguents for King Kamsa. And he said, well, I think I actually deserve those more than King Kamsa. Me and my brother, why don't you give them to us? And she was so attracted by Krishna and Balaram, she did so. Throwing caution to the wind, without any fear of Kamsa, she did this. And when Krishna was pleased by Kubja, what did he do? He grabbed both ears, I think, right? Or something like that. And he pulled her up with a quick jerk, and she was immediately no longer Trivakra. She was immediately, became transformed into a stunningly beautiful woman. And, since she already had some attraction, she felt even more of it then. And this is all the X-rated stuff in Bhagavatam. So that, because you have to put this in, right? Even Hollywood movie producers know that. You're going to lose your audience if you don't have some really good punches and some hot kisses and all this stuff. So, she invited him to come to her apartment. And Krishna actually, believe it or not, he actually obliged her. But in the long run, he would not satisfy her desire. Why? Because there was some tinge of personal interest. And this we've already discussed. If you have your own hetu, means your own personal agenda, then the Lord is not going to be so inspired to reciprocate. But if your only purpose is to please him without any selfish motive, then he will give you anything, like he did with Dhruva, like he did with so many devotees. So this is the sahajya mentality. Sometimes we even try to exploit the Lord himself for our own sense gratification. So we have to watch out for that. Anyway, the point here is that a devotee should not ignore other living entities. A devotee must know that in every living entity, however insignificant he may be, even as an ant, God is present. And therefore every living entity should be kindly treated and should not be subjected to any violence. In modern civilized society, slaughterhouses are regularly maintained and supported by a certain type of religious principle, but without knowledge of the presence of God in every living entity, any so-called advancement of human civilization, either spiritual or material, is to be understood as being in the mode of ignorance. Pretty strong statements are here. So, yeah. One, I'm going to go on without the Sanskrit because the time is limited and we're supposed to cover a few verses. One who offers me respect but is envious of the bodies of others. One who offers me respect but is envious of others and is therefore a separatist never attains peace of mind because of his inimical behavior towards other living entities. What is the word used for a separatist in this passage? Does anyone know offhand? Pritak bhava. He's in a different mood. He's got some different interests. He goes on to say, my dear mother, even, this is Kapila Dev speaking, even if he worships with proper rituals and paraphernalia of a person who is ignorant of my presence in all living entities, never pleases me by the worship of the deities in the temple. You have to be sensitive. Because remember what we said, quoting Bharata Muni about love? What did we say? Yeah, the lover and the beloved, they're equal. So these persons they love Krishna, even they may be in little tiny, tiny forms. Ants, who was that? Hanuman is famous for, what is that, the squirrel, right? Or spider, was it? Yeah. So, any little living entity, but everyone is dear to the Lord. And their love is equally valuable. Okay? It doesn't go by just material qualifications. And then he goes on to say, performing his prescribed duties, one should worship the deity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead until one realizes my presence in his own heart and in the hearts of other living entities as well. Of course, that doesn't mean that once you have realized this, then you stop worshiping the deity. No. You continue. And here Prabhupada says the word swakarmakrit in this verse is very significant. It means one who engages in discharging his prescribed duty. It is not that one who has become a devotee of the Lord or who engages in devotional service should give up his prescribed duties. No. One should be lazy. No one should be lazy under the plea of devotional service. One has to execute devotional service according to his prescribed duties. That's another one of the adharmas, 5 adharmas discussed in 7th canto, chapter 15. Narad Muni instructed Yudhishthira Maharaj. Paradharma, it's called. And Krishna is warning Arjuna about that in Bhagavad Gita. Don't try to do somebody else's duty. You have to do your own duty. This is because otherwise you incur sin for neglecting your own duties. And you'll not be able to do another person's duty also. Because everybody, swe adhikare yanishta saguna parikirtada. Swe adhikare, what is that? Swe karmani abhirataha samsiddhim labhate nara. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says. You have to perform your own duty. Swakarmakrit means that one should discharge the duties prescribed for him without neglect. All right. As the blazing fire of death, I cause great fear to whoever makes the least discrimination between himself and other living entities because of a differential outlook. That's another way of saying pridagabhava, but here the word is used bhinnadrik. You understand this? Bhinnadrik? How about the kids? Make any sense? No. I didn't think so. Having a differential, it's a separatist, basically. Somebody with his own separating, us and them. What's that famous shloka? I am nija paroveti ganana laghuchetasam. Seeing things in terms of mine and theirs. This is a calculation of a small-minded person, right? What's the rest of the verse, anybody? Udara charitanam tu vasudhaiva kutumbakam. A person who is noble in his deeds, this person sees the whole universe as his family, the whole world. So this is the idea. This should be the result of Krishna consciousness. If you're chanting properly, if you're worshiping the deity properly, It should be noticeable. Someone asked Srila Prabhupada, how do we recognize a person who is Krishna conscious? Do you know what Prabhupada said? Of course, he gave different answers on different occasions to the same question. But think of the context we're discussing. Prabhupada said he will be a perfect gentleman, because that indicates some sensitivity to the other people. Okay. Now we're on text 27. Therefore, through charitable gifts and attention, as well as through friendly behavior and by viewing all to be alike, one should propitiate me, who abide in all creatures, as their very self. So here Krishna is even suggesting that out of a very profound appreciation for the value that Krishna holds all living entities in, one should propitiate him through them, by giving them gifts, by being friendly to them, by being kind to them. Atamam sarva bhuteshu bhuta atmanam kritalayam. And one should see, this, we should be careful about these terms, they can be misinterpreted. Throughout the Upanishads especially, we find, and even in Bhagavad Gita, sarva bhutatma bhutatma, we find such words. What does it mean? All living entities, have become the same as you. It doesn't mean literally so, but it means you feel that they're as important as you are. This is exactly what the animals cannot do. Only human beings can do this. If you're coming to this consciousness as a human being, congratulations, you're properly utilizing your time. Otherwise, there's no need for the human body, and you may not get another one. It's true. All right. A few things that we can talk about here, but maybe we should stop now. What time is it?
8:25.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or any comments on anything? Yes.
Prabhu, you mentioned about the initially Krishna, Chant,
Paramatma is the witness and the permitter.
Correct. So when you were talking, you were mentioning that he doesn't come into your will basically, that whatever you want to choose, you do it basically.
He doesn't interfere with our own will, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But
that's what it means, Anumanta.
yeah, but in Gita he says there is a certain anumati I provide when the time comes, when the it's at the call at the time, proper timing, proper destination or location, and at the time of, then only I provide the anumati to get what you want basically.
So what's your question?
Question is isn't this contradicting to each
I'm
other?
not seeing this contradiction. Maybe restate your question in one sentence.
So basically when you are saying that God doesn't come unto your will, that what he wants, your choice is there, but still on the other side he says I provide the anumati with the help of Maya, that what you want to do basically.
Yeah, ultimately he's doing everything for us. We have no ability to do anything. All we can do is desire. When he sees what we desire, he will fulfill our desire. Right? Yeah. Therefore, he's not interfering. Not come into your will, as I take it, means he's not interfering with what you want. He's allowing that to happen. Because you have free will. Look at it this way. Children. Raise your hand if you have children, young children, or if you have had young children in the past. Yeah. Where are we now? We're in Phoenix, Arizona. Because I've been in 20 cities in the last 2 months. It all kind of merges together. So we don't really have an ocean here, do we? But maybe you took your kids to, what, Lake Havasu or Colorado River or something like that. And, they play on the bank and they're maybe building some sandcastles and such things, right? And then when it's time to go, you have to go. So they may be attached to their sandcastles. That's like us. Krishna allows us to build our little sandcastles, but the time factor alone will destroy them in due course. That's why he tells Arjuna at the end of Bhagavad Gita, like a good parent, he doesn't force Arjuna to do anything. A good parent knows you give them choices and you explain consequences. And then they make their own choice. You do not interfere. To a degree. Prabhupada said from birth to 5 years, you just let them play, you spoil them. Then they know you love them. Then from 5 to, say, puberty, then you have to discipline, a little bit sternly. And if they're mischievous, then you have to dispatch them to a stern relative who will discipline them, so that you don't have to destroy your own relationship. And then after, say, 15 or so, there's no question of discipline anymore. They're not going to listen to you. Then they have a new set of gurus, and who is that? The elder kids. Yes. Because that's how you become cool. All the kids know about this part, right? So, a good parent these are parenting skills. And Krishna is the same way. Upadrashtano mantacha means he sees everything you're doing, but he's not going to interfere, but he does explain consequences. And that is this book. Or Bhagavad Gita. What does he tell Arjuna at the end? Yatechasi tathakuru. I've explained everything to you. Now you do it whatever you like. And the implication is very strong. If you do what I am advising you to do, that's intelligent, because you will be able to sustain a mature commitment to pure devotion, and we will reciprocate forever in pure love. And there's no more birth, death, old age, disease, adi, adi, adi. But if you don't have to do that, but if you misuse your minute independence that I have invested with you eternally, fine, you can do that. But you should understand right here and right now that I'm going to turn you over to Maya, and Maya is going to beat the daylights out of you. In the form of a plane crash in Ahmedabad, or in the form of, so maybe somebody was working in the World Trade Center on the 11th of September, and when was it, 2002 or 2001? So, things happen. Car crash, carjacking if you live in South Central Los Angeles, cancer, hota hai, India mein. 5 years, not 5 years, say a generation or two ago, nobody knew what is cancer in India. And now every fifth person either had cancer or knows somebody. Kyun? It's a lifestyle decision. You can make your own decision, but if you make certain decisions, they're going to make you suffer, and you make other decisions and you'll be happy. So this is how Krishna manages. He doesn't interfere. Is it clear? Is it satisfying your question? Okay. The real test is if it satisfies Venkata's doubts. We can talk later. Anyone else have any questions? Or any comments? Also fine. Challenging? Fine, no problem. Okay. If I can't get a response that way, I'm going to get a response another way, but I'm going to get a response. I would like to hear some reflections, as Vaisheshika Prabhu calls them, what you have understood tonight. I'm going to prod you a little bit. So someone, yes.
Before we start that, I actually did have a question that I wanted to ask.
Okay.
So we can get attached in the way that, like, for example, in our dress, we may dress simply and then get attached to the false pride that, we are humble by dressing this way. Or we may become overly attached in our appearance and try to dress to show off for others. So how can we find the balance of having true humility without, getting an ego from it?
How do we get humility?
Yeah.
We recognize that I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. Instead of obsessing, as teenagers do, over how I'm looking and what people think and how I should dress and what image am I projecting, adi, 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 we should dress Krishna as nicely as he's dressed behind us. And better if we don't keep our back to Krishna also. So, this is Krishna consciousness. One person from Vrindavan, I remember he came to Texas when I was there, and he said, if you're hungry, you feed Krishna. If you're tired, you put Krishna to bed. If you're concerned too much about how you look, you do concern yourself with how Krishna looks. This is devotional service, very practical. Hrishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchyate. Take your senses, employ them in the service of the person who created and owns them, and controls them actually. You can't even control your senses. If Paramatma doesn't allow Anumanta, then even your alarm clock is going off full blast. You're not going to hear it, Baba. And so you're going to be late. I was in Atlanta recently, and Bhakti Vikas Swami was narrating when he was in the Brahmachari ashram. There was one Prabhuji. He had trouble getting up early in the morning, but he was thinking that in order to counter that problem, he was going to set his alarm clock every day for 2 a.m. Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to do it. Yeah, determined. When he went to bed, he was like this. When 2 a.m. actually came, he couldn't do it. He just slept through the whole thing. But nobody else slept through it. All the other brahmacharis have to hear this thing at 2 o'clock in the morning. And, there's somebody that just want to get some rest. Is it too much to ask? This is called adhipautic misery. But anyway, yeah, the thing is that we cannot even make, without Krishna's sanction, even we have all the facility before us, it's not going to happen. So, yeah, use your senses for Krishna's pleasure. Feed Krishna. And what does Rupa Goswami say? He's quoting, I think, Ramananda about this, that just as the gopis in Vrindavan were giving Krishna so many milk products to eat, just as the cows themselves were giving their milk also, just as his friend Sudama was holding this, poha in his clenched fist, and just as the gopis were bringing trays of sweets, and just as Yashoda was giving her breast milk, and so many other devotees in Vrindavan Leela are giving so many things to Krishna, so please take my offering also. When you offer prasadam, you can pray like this. If you pray like this, that's love. If you come to Krishna with a loving attitude like that, Krishna will reciprocate. He will notice. Because you're just as important to him as he is himself. And you don't know what's in the person next to you, what is in his heart. So be sensitive not to offend that person, because that person may be doing the same thing and Krishna appreciates so much. Satam prasangan mamavirya Satam ninda namna paramama paratham vitanote yata kyatim yata katamusahate tadvigaraha. Padma Purana explains, if someone especially has dedicated his life to spreading the holy name around the world, just to please Krishna, and let's say he has some flaw or some fall down, because it happens. We're all, none of us is stainless. Then, if we blaspheme that person, completely just ignoring all of the things that he's done, all the sacrifices for how many years that he's done, katamusahate tadvigaraham. How can the Lord tolerate? The question is asked in Padma Purana. Katamusahate. How can he tolerate that? He will not tolerate it. You will lose your taste for devotional service. That's the result of offenses. So we have to be very careful. If you remain forever Kanishta Adhikari, this is what we've been describing, a person who is not very sensitive to others around him, but very particular about the deity worship. I would even say persnickety about the deity worship, sanctimonious. We call it niyamagraha in Upadeshamrita. There is such a class of persons, very, very everything they do very pakka on the altar only. But when they come out and mixed with others, they can be very harsh. And Krishna doesn't appreciate that. You will not get love of God by that kind of behavior, because it's tamasic, and it's only going to hurt you in the long run. So these are the instructions that Kapila Deva is giving in this particular passage, and this whole third canto, it's a long, long discussion between Kapila Deva and his mother about devotional service, and so many different topics he touches on. This is just one of them. We should be sensitive not to offend, especially Vaishnavas. We should not offend anyone, but especially not Vaishnavas. We should offer respects even to an ant. What to speak of demigods? And what to speak of Vaishnavas who are pure? That's kind of a long-winded answer to a simple question. Is it helpful? Okay, anything else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay. He had a question first. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Maharaj. You have sunk us with nectar. So please give some more nectar in terms of your reflections of Srila Prabhupada when you met him. And
oh, that's a big topic. I mean, this is a work night, right? I don't want to cause a problem. Yeah, we're Friday now. Okay. Yeah. This is what happens when 2 months in a row you're moving around from city to city every few days, staying up late, getting up early, and overeating. It really gets to you after a while. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I don't mind if you don't mind. Maybe we can have a show of hands. You all want to hear about this? Okay, I'm seeing maybe 50%. Well, the temple president is the one whose vote matters. I'm going to put it on you. Okay, she's okay with it. All right, so let's park that for now, and then I'm going to answer your question.
So my question was around your comment about how it's not even possible to perform others' duties, like one has to do his own duty. But how do we practically understand this? Like, what is our duty and what is others' duty from a material and spiritual perspective?
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you have certain qualities, you have certain activities that you are engaged in because you cannot do otherwise. That is it. A person who is elder person, Guru Janas, they will judge this and they will engage you appropriately. You don't really have to do anything other than what you're suited for, because you can only do that. Look at it this way. Everybody knows this shlok, but how many realize this shlok? Karmani eva adhikaraste. Karma, in this context, it means actually dharma. Karmani eva adhikaraste. Your only adhikar is for doing your karma, which means your swadharma. You cannot but do your own thing. Otherwise, there's going to be a flaw. So that's the judgment that your Guru Janas have to look at. If you're doing it wrong, then that means maybe you're not, it's not really your dharma after all. You have to fine-tune it. See? But this is the zimmedari of the Guru Janas. So we leave it to our acharyas. That's why we have gurus. One of many, many good reasons that we have gurus. They can guide us in practical affairs like this. But it's guna karma vibhagasha. It's people are divided according to their qualities and their activities that they naturally perform. Not really too complex. Is that okay? You sure? 100%? All right. You raising your hand? Okay.
Is there anyone who got liberated in the mode of tamasic, who is a devotee of the Lord?
Yes. Sometimes it's causeless mercy. Oho bakiyam stanakalakutam jighansaya payayad apyasatvi lebhe gatim dhatri uchitam tatoanyam kam vadayalam sharanam vrajema. Putana, she was a Rakshasi. What was her occupation? Anybody know? Yeah, what was her swadharma? She was going around killing babies. That's pretty tamasic. Right? And, she really, really blew it because Kamsa gave her a bad instruction and she made the choice to follow that bad instruction. What was that bad instruction? What was that choice? Go to Krishna disguised as a beautiful lady, just trying to make him happy, lalan palan. And, she wanted to kill him. She put poison on her breast and then offered the child her breast milk to suck. So Krishna sucked the breast milk and he sucked the poison also and he sucked out her life. But she was given the position of a nursemaid of the Lord because that's how she approached him. Yayata mam prapadyante tansateva bhajami aham. Krishna says, commensurate to your attitude and your activities in approaching me, I will reciprocate accordingly. So she was definitely tamasic. She had no intention of engaging in pure devotional service, but that's what he gave her.
So is it her swadharma?
That was her swadharma, yeah. But Krishna changed that. He liberated her on the spot, even though she was so tamasic. So the whole point is that these things happen from time to time. You cannot depend on that. Don't hold your breath waiting for the Lord to do something so kind for in your case also. But it does happen. And so you can't rule it out. This is the point. This is our only saving grace. We're all banking on that. What is that doha? Anybody know this? Hariram Vyas, I think it was, he says. Some people's strength is bhajan, some people's, they're inclined more towards tapasya. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just sleeping peacefully because I know that Radharani is going to take care of everything. So, it is possible, but the general system is that we go through the process of sadhana bhakti, regulated devotional service according to scriptural injunctions, vidhivat puja. And then, hote we become Krishna conscious, and then we eventually go back to Godhead. And they can kabhi aisa hota hai ki even a demon can become liberated like this. Are you willing to sign up now? No? Not yet? Here's another thing. Even a curse sometimes appears to be something negative, but that can also be mercy, as in the case of the 4 Kumaras, and the doorman for that matter. Everybody got, it was a fight. And, it looked as if they were thrown out of Vaikuntha, but it was for the purpose of engaging in the Lord's Leelas. Jaya Vijaya. That's the story of Narasimhadev. Long, long story. We don't have time for that. Is that okay? You sure? Okay. Yeah.
Following up with that question, sometimes it looks like the liberation or Krishna's sanction is completely random. Like in Nectar of Devotion also.
Yeah, it does look like that because it's causeless.
It's causeless. So then whatever you do, people come to this question. It
doesn't matter what you do.
Right.
Yeah, but the injunction is to do what Krishna wants, and so we do it. That's called ahaituki bhakti. You can't necessarily get Krishna's mercy no matter how much you try for it, but generally he gives his mercy. We can say that, generally. He doesn't always give his mercy immediately like he did with Putana. That's pretty unexpected and rare. But Krishna is always responsive. This is the point. And he's always responsive to the mood that you approach him with. We've already stated that. If you approach him with an ahetuki spirit of bhava bhakti, love, then he will reciprocate with the same love. If you approach him with a business attitude, then he's going to pay you what you purchased and be done with you. So, it's up to us. But he's 100% responsive all the time. You cannot lose with bhakti. That's why we say, what is that verse? Tivanena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. What's the first half? I forgot. Anyway, the idea is you may have all material desires, you may have no desires, you may desire liberation, whatever. Yeah, kama sarva kamo va moksha kama udarati. Tivrena bhakti yogena, you cannot go wrong if you engage in intense devotional service to the Lord, because he will reciprocate. That we need to have faith. And if we associate properly with saintly persons who are sinless and pure, we will get that faith, because they have that faith. Otherwise, they don't become sinless and pure. All right. So, okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, build up on the same questions the devotees are asking. So, if you depart the world by performing your material duties, right? We are supposed to perform in our own karma and have devotional service on as well. But if I leave the body while performing my duties, and to the point you made that Krishna will always be reciprocate with the how we approach him. But in case of Bharat Maharaj, he didn't, right? So he had to take another birth.
Yeah.
So as a devotee, is it wrong to think that, hey, I don't want to be I want to serve Krishna, but not in a material body anymore?
No,
and
that's fine.
Then I run the risk of performing my duties and may not remember Krishna at the last moment.
While we have this material body, we have to perform the duties that are enjoined upon it. That's called niyatam karma. If you do not do that, you incur sin. And you cannot offer sin to Krishna, right? There is such a thing as karma yoga, but there's no such thing as vikarma yoga. So, you have to perform your duty. So that's no problem. We can continue in this body until the time comes for us to leave this body, and then we advance. If we do not advance our consciousness to the point of pure devotional service while we're in this human form of life, वो भी ठीक रहेगा, क्योंकि कृष्ण ने कहा कि नेह भक्रामनाशोसी प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते salpamaphi asya dharmasya trayate. That even a little bit of advancement on this path you'll not lose. Let's say you do 10% bhakti in this life, 90% maya. Okay, you will get the result of all your maya, karmic result, but the 10% bhakti is not going anywhere. You will resume at 11%. And as you sincerely, as you exercise your own volition to approach Krishna willingly in love, he's going to reciprocate, as we said. He's always responsive. So gradually you will advance by that means. And so eventually, within a short period of time, in the eternal scope of things, short period of time is relative, you will go back to Godhead. Maybe not this life. Bharat Maharaj had some slip-ups, all of us do. So, it may take some time. Generally it takes time. Krishna admits this in Bhagavad Gita when he says, Bhunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. So, it generally does take time. And in fact, even more discouraging, I hate to remind you that Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschad yadati siddhaye yatatamapi siddhanam. He says, even those, 1 out of 1,000 people will even attempt to take up devotional service, and even of those who attain some measure of success at it, they may not understand me, in fact. So it takes time. And we should not expect that we're going to get, somebody's making noise here, cracking knuckles or something. Yeah. So then we should not expect that it's going to just happen overnight. It usually takes some time. We have to be patient. Now here's the thing. Rupa Goswami says, 6 things you have to do while you're patiently executing devotional service. What are they? Patience is the first one. Then you have to be firmly convinced that what you're doing is right, and you have to be clear about what you want. That's all included in Nishchaya. And Utsaha, you have to be enthusiastic at the same time. Dhairya, you have to tolerate whatever is thrown at you, because life can throw some pretty outrageous misfortunes at you. And you have to follow strictly, and you have to avoid non-devotional input. These 6 things will undoubtedly assure your complete success, but it's not easy to do these 6 things all at the same time. Many people can be enthusiastic, but they cannot persevere. Many people can be, many people are very clear about what they want, but they may not be able to follow all the principles. Many people are, they're very good devotees, they have every qualification, but they somehow or other, they can't give up their non-devotional associations. So it's not so easy. But if we try our best to do these 6 things, Krishna will do the rest for us. Is that okay? Helpful? Okay. All right.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I'm not building on the same thing, but it's kind of related question, but in a different way. Being a grahastha, you have certain duties that you have to do, right? And then essentially we say surrender on to Krishna, right? Or surrender on to Guru and Krishna. That surrendering piece is so difficult, meaning when you go do your whatever karma, meaning job or your daily duties, you feel you are in control.
Yeah.
You are doing this, right? Whatever the situation is, you are handling the situation, you are dealing with it, or you are taking care of it, right? But
we think. Yeah.
How do you, it's really difficult. It's easy to say, but it's very difficult to surrender onto Krishna. Krishna, you take care of, you know what I mean? How do you understand this distinctly, these 2 things?
Yeah. There are 5 factors of action that Krishna mentions in chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita. The place, the endeavor, the person who performs that endeavor, the time, and ultimately one more thing. You can control to some degree the time that you do something. The person who does it, that would be you. The activity you choose to do, that is also, we're in control of that, right? The place where we do it, we can also decide these things. But ultimately, there's the final factor that we cannot control. What is that? Daiva, fate. And in other words, Krishna. He's the 5th factor. So we have to perform our duties and engage in the activities that we've chosen to the best of our ability and under the direction of proper authorities who can guide us in devotional service. But we have to be detached enough to recognize that ultimately it's up to Krishna if we get the result or if we don't get the result. That's why in the beginning chapters, Krishna is talking all about this kind of detachment, nishkama karma. Because if we don't have that foundation built very clearly within our hearts, we're never going to understand anything above that. You have to understand what is nishkama karma first. It's very closely allied to the principle of ahaituki bhava that we mentioned earlier. If you cannot give up the attachment to the fruits of your activities, or even to the false ego of thinking that you're producing those fruits, it's going to be very difficult for you. Therefore, to complete the verse, ek cheez ye hai ki karmani eva adhikaraste, right? Dusri baat kya hai? Ma phaleshu kadachana. But you cannot think that you're producing those fruits, because you're not. Krishna is ultimately the deciding factor. Parents, if they have a child, say with, what is it, chikungunya or the other things that we get in India. A few years ago I had typhoid and it still hurts. The children may get sick with something and the parents employ the best doctors to help them and everything, but somehow they still pass away. It happens. It's beyond us. So karmani evadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhu. You cannot even take pride in your work also, therefore. And that's even harder than doing something, right? Hard to do. To give up the false ego that, ahankara, I am the doer. It's very difficult. And then finally, what's the kutagra here? Last line. Mate sangas tva karmani. And you cannot not do your duty also. I spoke with one professor in the University of Hawaii. He's a Hindu man. And he's Sanskrit professor also. And, he said, look, how are you going to convince the man on the street to take this up? Once they understand what it actually means, practically. That it's very difficult. What is it? Slavery. That's what it is. You have to work hard. You can't take pride in what you're doing. You get no paycheck. And you can't stop working either. You can't leave. This is slavery, no? That system is like that. Dharma. But that's why it's purifying. No pain, no gain. So that is kind of like, if you look at all things Vedic injunctions, you're going to find there's common denominators, and these are the things that Krishna twice tells us in Bhagavad Gita should never be given up. What are they? 3 things. Yajna, dana, tapa. Yajna, dana, tapaschaiva, pavanani manishinaha. Even the wise persons are purified by these 3 things. Therefore, in every Vedic injunction that tells you to do anything or everything, dharmic, these are the active ingredients. You have to sacrifice something. You have to give something away. You have to do something. You have to accept something that you don't want to accept. This is what purifies us. And not only us, it purifies even pure people. So that this is why prescribed duties should never be given up. Even you become a devotee, you still have to continue prescribed duties. And as we told him, the gurus will determine what it is that you prescribed duty is. You just have to do that. Very easy. All you have to do is surrender, but it's tough thing to ask for false ego. Hard pill to swallow. Especially if you're Purusha. Purusha Abhiman, if you have. Then very difficult. The ladies are more fortunate. Somebody asked one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, what is the position of women in Krishna consciousness? And his godbrother, without missing a beat, he said, they actually hold the superior position because they have less false ego. They're ready to serve Krishna. They're a little more submissive. They're very pious. The joke is there, right? In India, all the masjids are full of men and all the temples are full of women. It is true. So yeah, it's a tough pill. I mean, it's a tall order for us. But that's why we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we have to make sure that we hear Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Drops of water wear away the stone. So, this false ego can be eventually dissolved by the potency of this chanting. And then it becomes easier and easier and easier. Is it okay? Not too discouraging, I hope. Okay. All right, so how did I join Krishna consciousness? I grew up just a few blocks away from the Los Angeles temple. And from childhood, I was a little bit pious disposition. I was raised as a Roman Catholic. And I used to, in fact, take my parents all up and down the California coast looking for various churches and, there's a whole chain of missions that were created by the Spanish missionaries a couple of hundred years ago. So I was into that kind of thing. Eventually, as I got older, I was very interested in Hinduism in particular, because Roman Catholicism was not Hindu enough for me. I became a vegetarian, I practiced yoga, I started learning Sanskrit, and then when I read Prabhupada's books, it was like for the first time that somebody turned on the lights and I could understand everything very clearly. So then one godbrother called me because I went to a private school north of Los Angeles, and he said, look, Prabhupada is coming. I think you should definitely try to prioritize this because Prabhupada is getting old. We don't know how many more times he's going to be here to see you. You really need to take his darshan. Tulayama lavenapi ityadi. Just 1/11 of a second of association with such a Mahatma can give you all success. He was preaching to me like this, and somehow or other I was fortunate enough to accept it. At some difficulty. I actually had to make certain things happen in order to get out of my school year early, and I went to see Srila Prabhupada. So when I first saw him, it was in Los Angeles Temple Room. If you've been there, you know there's a mezzanine in the back overlooking the whole temple. You get a bird's eye view. So I was standing there. On the right-hand side of the altar, which houses Sri Sri Rukmini Dwarkadhish, Gaurnitayan Jagannath, on the right-hand side, there's a curtain that leads to Prabhupada's quarters. So at 7 or so a.m., when they were greeting the deity, those curtains opened, and a whole crowd of young American sannyasis with their dandas came out of that doorway, and in their midst was a tiny, tiny Bengali sannyasi, Prabhupada. He was very small, actually. But despite his physical stature, a little bit smaller, like many Bengalis are a little bit smaller. So still, he had this tremendous, I want to say just, there was something about him that just exuded power. And as soon as he walked into the room, the whole room was as if illuminated, kind of as if the sun god had come into the room. And, it was overwhelming, frankly. It just really seemed like that, just very bright. And he didn't really do anything very unusual. He just came to see the deities. He folded his hands, hat jod karo pranam karte, or he just paid his obeisances. He took charanamritam and then he went to sit on the Vyasasana. After he sat down on the Vyasasana, they sang Guru Puja. I was just young there at that time, maybe 15 or so, and plus I was living at home still, so I was like not an important person and couldn't get very close to Prabhupada. But somehow or other through the people I could get a glimpse of him from time to time. Somehow or other, by some amazing good fortune, by the end of the kirtan, I had somehow or other ended up like pretty close to Prabhupada's Vyasasana. So when everybody sat down for the Bhagavatam class, I sat down where I was, and I was pretty close. About as close as I am to you right now. And so Prabhupada, he started to sing Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, the song we normally sing before classes. At that time, I had been reading his books. I'd been chanting and following the principles for some time. And I actually knew the words to the song, but I could not follow because I was just so mesmerized by every little movement that Prabhupada made. I was just stunned and just couldn't remember anything other than Prabhupada was just dominating my whole consciousness with something. So, and then he began to speak. Srimad Bhagavatam. It was the 6th canto. He was speaking about the Ajamilopakyan, and particularly there's a passage there that describes 13 witnesses to all of our activities. We mentioned Paramatma already, he's one of them. But there are others, the sun, the moon, the devas, Yamaraj and his agents, etc. So I couldn't really get a lot out of Prabhupada's class because his Bengali accent was so difficult for me to understand. I mean, even for many other Indians, it's hard to understand, right? we say, Chaitanya Deva, but Bengalis will say Chaitanya Devo. It's kind of hard to understand that. Guru Moko Babaku Tichete Aiko. They say that if you fill your mouth with rasgullas and speak Hindi, that's Bengali. I'm not making fun of my spiritual master. But it was hard for me. It was very difficult to understand what he was saying, so I didn't get so much out of the class. But it was just seeing him was just extraordinary, because I knew enough of the philosophy to ruminate over these points that we hear, that even 1/11th of a second seeing such a pure soul, it can purify you. And I did not take my eyes off him for the whole time. And still I can see it in my mind's eye now. You have to kind of focus in Krishna consciousness. I remember many years later, decades later, I was in Dwarka in Gujarat. And the system there is that after Mangala Arati, you can watch the deities' whole Abhisheka, Puja, Shringar, everything going on. So I still can envision that to this day, because for at least 2-3 hours I chanted all my 16 rounds of Hare Krishna mantra, just watching Dwarkadish, never took my eyes off of him. We can see all the milk flowing down over his blackish form, and followed by water and then flowers, and they dressed him in purple satin or silk it was, and so many diamonds on top of that. I can still see all of it now. And giving him mogra flowers, and so, in this way I was fixed on Srila Prabhupada and can still see that effulgent form. He also used to wear this very bright polished silk, so that kind of added to the effect. It was like the sun god had walked into the room. Really incredible. So, and a few times that week, because generally Prabhupada used to visit America, he would stay for about a week in each place, or less than a week. And so he wasn't there very many days, but a few days I saw this, like this. One time we were sitting on the front lawn of the temple. Now there's no longer a lawn there, but in those days there was a lawn, and there was actually a little garden as well. We were reading the recently published Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita about the activities of Sakshi Gopal. This deity here reminds me of another Sakshi Gopal in Vrindavan. There's an old temple in Vrindavan he's named Sakshi Gopal. He looks a lot like this deity. But anyway, I noticed, so there's Sakshi Gopal is there, and Madhavendra Puri, he brought chandan for this Sakshi Gopal. He was ordered by the Lord in a dream to bring him sandal paste, so that's what he did. Long story we don't need to get into, but we were reading that story. And then suddenly we could see that I had my back to the temple, but my godbrother Shubhananda was reading. He saw that Prabhupada's door to the outside opened up. And again, all the sannyasis came out, Prabhupada in their midst. He walked down the stairs, and there was a car waiting there. So Prabhupada stepped into the car. This is in June of 1976, and when Prabhupada came and sat down in that car, my godbrother Shubhananda said, "It's too bad we don't have any flowers. We could offer some flowers to Srila Prabhupada." Now the garden was there, and I saw there were so many genda flowers in a row, and being only 15, I just went right up and picked the flowers without any hesitation, went straight up to the window of Prabhupada's car, which was open because it was June, and I just held the flowers there for Srila Prabhupada. He looked at the flowers for a minute, and Brahmananda I think somebody was sitting next to him and said, "He's offering you some flowers, Srila Prabhupada." And Prabhupada took the flowers, and they slowly drove away, and they went wherever they went, some appointment or something. And that I will not forget also, because that was really the only association, personal interaction I ever had with Prabhupada. Even in Guru Puja, as I said, I was not an important person, could not even think to get close, because in 1976, it's not like it is now, when we have so many spiritual masters in ISKCON. In 1976, every single person in ISKCON had Srila Prabhupada as their spiritual master and wanted to get close to him. So I had no chance of that. But at least somehow Krishna arranged for that opportunity, and very happy about that. But I never had any personal instructions, never had any other interactions other than that. And still, it's maintained me over the years. Actually, I joined because of his books, as I said. The other day I told this also, that I'd read many editions of Bhagavad Gita, but I couldn't understand them because the publishers also didn't understand them. They were not bona fide. They're not coming in parampara, so, how's anybody supposed to understand them if the publishers don't know what they're talking about? But when I read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, everything was answered, no stone left unturned, very comprehensive, very logical, very simple, very clear, very sweet, obviously from a practitioner's point of view, and it was just like a soothing balm for the soul. So that was what really brought me into Krishna consciousness, and since that time it sustained me as well. And there's a lesson in this. What is it? That if I didn't have any really extensive association with Srila Prabhupada, but was somehow nourished initially and sustained since by his books, then that means you have the same opportunity that I had. And I must have done something right, because I'm still here after half a century. So please read Srila Prabhupada's books, take it very seriously, do it as a daily function, and you cannot skim through these books the way that you can do with other books. You have to think. That's what these books makes you do, and that's why people prefer Facebook. You can go brainless. And, as we said earlier, autopilot, you don't have to think, you don't have to, you can just surrender to, Tim Cook or whoever it is that, is programming you. And you will go where they want you to go. But with Prabhupada's books, you have to kind of like take charge. And the analogy is given in the Upanishads, like the driver and the 5 horses. We have our senses. We have to take charge. So read these books every day, and if you take this experiment that for 1 month only you read Prabhupada's books every day, you will experience, by the end of the month, you are a completely different person. You will experience this zarur. There's no doubt about it. So I don't know if that's satisfying the question about, saying something.
More or less, yes.
Yeah.
More or less, yes.
Yeah.
But as it is known in the community, you are initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
So how did you get the initiation? Through beads or how?
Okay, yeah, that's, very quickly I joined the Radha Damodar Sankirtan party because, there were, this is, maybe it's, I don't know if I should say this, but there were 2 camps of devotees in those days. There was the left-wing devotees and the right-wing devotees. Just, and the left-wing devotees were all encouraging that, look, you have to join ISKCON now, you should take initiation, and, this is your chance, and do this while you're young, and, don't miss this, and anything can happen, and you might die, and you got to get it done now. So they're all encouraging me to join the temple, even though I was only, 14 or 15 at the time. Then the right-wing devotees were saying, no, you can stay home, you just live nearby, and you can finish school and make your parents happy, and adi. So, the illicit nature, I think, of the left-wing gopis maybe took control of my judgment, and I decided to join. And that's a long story in itself, but eventually I ended up on the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party. Now we were moving around all over the place. We were not staying stable anywhere for more than maybe a week or so. So it was kind of hard for us to get initiated, but Prabhupada had a system, especially in the later years, that there would be a fire yajna performed in Mayapur, he would chant on the beads, and then he would send with his representative to America with those beads and then give them. So that's how I was initiated. I was actually initiated in a house that we were staying in. There was one Garg family. Obviously they must have been descendants of Gargamuni, right? There are many Gargs in Vrindavan area, so they were staying there. They were hosting the Radha Damodar deities also. Those deities are now Gita Nagari mein Birajman hain. But in those days they were traveling on the buses. And I was on Radha Damodar's own bus, as a matter of fact. I was very lucky. So Radha Damodar was there, and this poor lady, when it came time for us to leave, she was crying like anything. She said, "You cannot take away my Radha Damodar." She was so distraught. And this is after a month of putting up with, 30 brahmacharis who eat a lot, and, who are not, maybe, so well trained even, and lots of austerities that family did. Anyway, so in that house I was initiated in front of Radha Damodar. Harinam Diksha. Okay, is that satisfactory? Yateshta. Okay, so maybe then we'll stop here, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Once again, thank you so much, Prabhu, for a wonderful class and so much sharing from different topics, various topics, and answering everybody's questions. Thank you so much. So tomorrow's class is at Aniket Prabhu's house in the evening at 6:30. If you're not RSVP to them, if you are planning to join, please RSVP to them by this evening or tomorrow morning. And the program is at 6:30. Tomorrow, and today's host is Anant Chaitanya Prabhu. Yes, Anant Chaitanya Prabhu. Somehow it didn't sound right. Prabhu has beautiful deities here. They just came recently, as you probably found out. His mother and family used to worship for some time.
Naam kya hai Thakur ji ka?
Vrindavan Bihari. So, very nice garlands again, Prabhu. Your cousin sister. Very nice, very nice. Thank you so much. Lovely dress as well. Hope you didn't have any difficulty today. The other day we had a program just recently, and Prabhu had a hard time dressing the deities, so he had shared that with me. But today,
very beautiful.
Very, very beautiful dress. Very nice. I like the headdress as well. So, anyways, thank you, Prabhu, for having the program today, and thank you all for attending today's program. We'll see you tomorrow, and then the last program is at the temple on Sunday feast program. Starts with Arati at 5 o'clock, and then the class will be at 5:30, and then Prasadam will follow. We do have an ASU program scheduled on Tuesday, and we don't have all the details right now, but it's in the works right now. So if anybody wants to join, maybe you can join. But Shyam Gopal Prabhu will have the details about that within the next 24 hours, we hope. Okay. Thank you again. We'll recite the Prasadam prayers, and we'll honor Prasadam. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji and Mataji, for gracing us again. I think 2 years back, Prabhu had visited, and at that time he had sang Gaur Arti, and there was a photo over here. So now we have him personally. And I remember the last time when he had visited, he had given a story about Pishima's Gaur Nitai. Okay. And then I was so happy that the next time when I went to Vrindavan, I made sure that I visited. So it's a very, very small place, like Prabhu had mentioned. So thank you, Prabhu, for sharing those pastimes.
We're going to offering to, since you said you will reciprocate if you go with offering. So
yeah, I saw he made the altar, right? You had given for the altar, you had mentioned. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So, no? His Grace Mukunda Dutt Prabhu ki Jai.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Mahaprasade Govinde Namo Brahmane Vaishnave Swalpa Punyavatam Rajan Vishwasane Vajayate Sharira Vidyaja Jade Indriyata Ekay Jive Fele Vishe Sagre Tar Mate Jivati लोभोमय सुदुर्मति ताके चिता कठिन संसारे कृष्ण बड़ो दयामय करी बारे जीवा जाए स्वप्रसादन दिलो भाई से अनामृत पाओ श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गुण गाओ प्रेमिता को श्री चैतन्य निताय जय निमाय जय निताय जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे भगवत महाप्रसादम की So we can go for prasad now. Thank you so much everyone.